We live in a world obsessed with wholeness, smooth surfaces, curated perfection, flawless lives presented in ultra-high definition pixels. The message is everywhere. If you're broken, you're failing. If you're hurting, you're weak. But this message isn't just wrong, it's dangerous. Because the truth is this: our fractures are not flaws, they're invitations. In ancient myths, heroes were never perfect. They bled, they doubted, they lost their way. But somehow, our modern mythology, Instagram icons, billionaire moguls, productivity gurus, has rewritten the narrative. Now the ideal is invulnerability. But here's the paradox. The more we strive to be unbreakable, the more brittle we become. Let's return to philosophy, to the thinkers who dared to look beneath the surface. Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." He wasn't praising dysfunction, he was revealing a secret. That transformation doesn't come in spite of our chaos, but because of it. Perhaps that's the hardest truth we avoid. The shadow beneath the surface, Carl Jung called it the shadow. Not evil, not wrong, but simply the parts of ourselves we refuse to see. That part of you that breaks down in private, even as you keep a calm face in public. The part that feels unworthy, even as you check off every box of success. The part that feels like a fraud, no matter how many people praise you. We bury those parts. We armor ourselves with personas, masks of strength, achievement, and control. Till whatever we suppress doesn't disappear. It waits, it builds pressure, until one day it bursts to the surface. In Jungian psychology, the integration of the shadow is the only path to true wholeness. Not denial, not distraction, but deep, sometimes painful, acknowledgement. And here's where it gets interesting. Modern neuroscience is catching up. Recent studies show that chronic emotional suppression leads to long-term neurological changes. The amygdala, which processes fear, becomes overactive. The prefrontal cortex, which governs emotional regulation, shrinks. Your brain, quite literally, begins to warp under the weight of denial. And this isn't just theoretical, it's physical, real. You feel it in your chest, your stomach, your insomnia, your burnout. The body keeps the score, as trauma researcher Bessel van der Kolk writes, and the cost of pretending adds up. Until something breaks. But maybe that break is the beginning of something sacred. Kintsugi and the philosophy of imperfect repair in Japan. There's an art form called kintsugi, the practice of repairing broken pottery with gold. Not hiding the crack, not disguising it, but illuminating it. The object becomes more valuable because of what it has endured. What if we saw our psyches the same way? What if anxiety wasn't a sign of weakness, but a call to presence? What if grief wasn't a flaw to fix, but a doorway to depth? What if our emotional scars were golden veins of insight? Too often, we treat pain as an error code, as something to eliminate. But what if pain is information? What if your sadness is trying to tell you something about what matters to you? What if your fear is pointing toward your growing edge? Nature teaches us this again and again. Bones grow stronger where they've broken. Trees grow thicker bark after storms. Some seeds only germinate after fire. But humans, we pretend, we patch over, we hustle forward. Because to pause, to feel, to admit we are hurting, that would mean admitting we're human. And that scares us. The myth of the strong self in our culture, strength, is misdefined. We think strength is about how much you can carry, how long you can endure, how little you react. But real strength is something quieter. It's the moment you let yourself cry, when you've been holding it in for years. It's saying, I don't know, when your entire identity depends on being the expert. It's admitting you need help, after a lifetime of being a helper. Our society glamorizes toughness, but this brand of stoicism, untethered from emotional literacy, isn't resilience, it's emotional constipation, and it's making us sick. A 2023 study found that individuals who suppress emotions regularly are twice as likely to develop chronic illnesses. Another showed that people who describe themselves as a mentally tough often suffer from undiagnosed anxiety and depression, masked under layers of performance. The mask works until it doesn't, because no matter how beautiful the facade, a house with no foundation will eventually collapse. The three masks we wear, Jung observed that humans wear armor, Not to deceive others, but to protect the tender parts of ourselves we've never been taught to hold. Let's look at the 3 most common masks. 1. The mask of achievement is one whispers, if I just do more, become more, earn more, they'll finally see I'm enough. It's built from diplomas, promotions, accolades, and curated timelines. But beneath the gold stars and LinkedIn endorsements lies a hollow echo. Do they love me, or just my resume? 2. The mask of stoicism, this one says, real strength is silence. It turns tears into shame, emotions into enemies. But silence is not always strength. Sometimes it's fear in disguise. Fear of being too much, or not enough, or both, somehow at once. 3. The mask of martyrdom. This is the mask worn by those who give until there's nothing left. The caregiver who never asks for care. The leader who never shows doubt. It seems noble, selfless, but beneath it often lies a deep hunger. To be seen, supported, held. Jung didn't tell us to rip off the masks. He invited us to speak to them, to ask, what are you protecting? What would happen if I didn't need you anymore? Because the goal isn't to live mask-free. It's to wear them consciously, not as shields, but as tools. From word to wisdom, there's a line in the Gospel of Thomas. If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. Whether you follow religion or reason, the message is the same. We must confront what we conceal. But here's the good news. When we do, we change. Not into someone perfect, but into someone real. Your breakdown becomes your breakthrough. Your grief becomes a compass. Your anxiety becomes a guidepost to something deeper. This isn't romanticizing suffering. Pain still hurts. But it's offering a different frame. What if your cracks aren't detours, but the very path you're meant to walk? Wholeness over perfection. The philosopher Alan Watts once said, trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. We chase perfection like it's a finish line. But wholeness was never about becoming flawless. It's about becoming fully human. That means being strong and soft. Certain and confused, joyful and grieving. We don't need more perfect people. We need more honest people. People who can say, here's my story, here's my scar, here's where I broke, and here's what I've built from it. The skeleton that holds its skull, imagine this image again. A skeleton, not hiding its brokenness, but holding it with reverence. That's not morbidity, that's self-possession. The confrontation with the self is the scariest meeting you'll ever have, and the most liberating. The most liberating. Because when you stop running from your shadow, you stop running from your power, your depth, your soul. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life. And you'll call it fate. We all break. That's a given. The question is, will you break open or just break down? This is where true power begins. This script is not a call to collapse, but to rebuild differently. To build with gold in your cracks. To build with space for your tears. To build not from fear, but from integration. Because the world doesn't need another flawless image. It needs your full, messy, luminous self. So go ahead. Crack open. The light's been waiting.